Hello and welcome. So since it's Thursday in the UK, I talked to the barmaid for a bonus voyage, the Barmaid Tip voyage. It's a difficult but rewarding voyage. It'll replace your third voyage, but also give you a reroll to replace the voyage that it's going to replace. So you don't actually lose a voyage when doing this. So since I actually have two accounts, I'm doing this both on my Nose to Bills accounts as well as my main Smoking 911 2. It might be a little confusing since I may mix some footage from both in between, but only if it's relevant. So I ended up failing the barmaid tip on Molecule, but I was able to get it done successfully on Smoky, which it gave a pretty hefty reward, which I'm actually unsure if it was this much at the start, but this really helped me purchase extra upgrades for my ship. So for some reason I've gotten the same special voyages for the scroll about 3 times now. I failed the first 2 times, like the first one was in the previous episode, there's one in this, but on the third try I actually got a scroll piece, the first one on my noob account. So I had a few close calls here and there. I actually got a scroll piece on my main account as well. You can't really tell the difference between the accounts since there isn't like it doesn't say which account I'm using. But so far for each of my accounts I have 1 out of 4 scroll pieces for the mage top. But I don't really see the point of rushing to get the scrolls at the moment because even if you get all 4 pieces right away, the resources you need to gather to make the armor won't be available until at least a month after release. So because of that, I do a few story missions here and there. I sometimes do special reward voyages just for the reward if I need the supplies, but if I don't, I stick to either the scrolls or the story missions. And actually, up to this point, I had not failed that many voyages on this account. I had pretty much like a 80 or 90% success rate. So I actually decided to attempt 58% and actually lost one of my best shipmates. So the story missions each require a different level 90 skill. There are 6 skills for the 6 different adventurers. There's fishing for the whaler, herb lore for the biologist, prayer for the missionary, rune crafting for the occultist, thieving for the convict, and slayer for the assassin. So the benefit of having multiple 90 skills in the ones I mentioned is that you can get more special voyages each day for each different adventurer you have access to. So each of these people have 5 different stories. There are some crossovers in their story, but at the moment I'm assuming that there's maybe a big reward after completing all 5 stories. I can't be sure of this at the moment, but since the wording on the official wiki isn't too specific, so at this point I'm just kind of hoping that it'll give some kind of large reward at the end because even if somebody right now have all 4 pieces, they won't be able to actually make the armor for at least a month due to the restriction of how many voyages per day you can do. So anyway, besides all that, after failing my first mission, I had a few more hard missions, and these were about both 60 to 80% missions, having failed horribly that it sent my ships to dry dock for one was for 1 hour, one was 5 hour. Now, what most people seem to neglect here is that you can actually talk to the black marketeer guy and have him quick fix your boat if it's in dry dock. With a fee, of course. It's about 20k coins per hour, I think. So it's not really that much since player owned ports doesn't even require any resources or money. Well, not a lot, so it shouldn't be that much. So if your ship ever gets sent to dry dock, just remember that you can actually talk to the black marketeer guy to repair your ship. After finally unlocking the Hook region, which happened at the end of all my voyages, I heard about the Hook region characters like several hours before I actually finished, so I assume there are actually quite a lot of people who got to the Hook region way before I did. Well, this is like on the 6th day, I think. But after unlocking the Hook region, you get some beefy stats on, but also pricey crew members that you can purchase. The thing to note here is that Chimes is pretty much a universal currency throughout all these regions. You can see the prices on the crew roster and on your ship, they all require chimes, on top of whatever currency the region they are from uses. So, which in this case is slight. But what I'm worried about at the moment is will there be a tier 3 first mate? First mates are, like, if you don't know what a first mate is, it gives solidarity, which gives a certain amount of bonus stats depending on how many unique crew members you have. Which a first mate gives plus 25. He's from the first region. Eastern Overseer is like he has solidarity, but it's plus 50, but he's from the second region. And I haven't heard of a first mate version in the third region yet. So a thing to notice about the crew member is that with each new region you enter, your crew rapidly becomes obsolete with the new crew member available because if you just find a new crew member, they pretty much have the stats of your old members. And they level up a lot easier since they're well, they start at level 0, you get them to level 1, and it gets up to about level 5 where it gets increasingly difficult to level for your normal crew. But as always, like before, you always upgrade your ship first. It gives a ton of benefit for about the same price as buying a new crew member. Which, if you upgrade your deck, it applies for both decks, which is pretty much a double benefit for the same price. So the hull is a good second upgrade to do if you have the currency to afford it. But at the moment, I don't really see much use in upgrading the rudder or the ram or figurehead of the ship. The rudder only modifies speed, which may be somewhat useful, but you want to first focus on upgrading the deck of your ship than the hull because the speed doesn't matter if you're gonna fail the mission. Which in the third region, it gets to about 2.5 hours, which is quite a long time. So then the ram and ram figurehead of the ship, which is the front, I pretty much don't see a point unless you're just spewing out money because it costs just about the same as upgrading your deck, but only it has one half of the stats. So the only time I would actually consider upgrading the rudder or ram is just if you're overflowing with money and you're pretty much succeeding in every single voyage you do. So a thing that bugs me is that you don't actually get to see the XP on the characters. Like when you only see what happens when they level up, but you don't actually see how much XP it is, which apparently, it's possible to get level 6 for a crew member, which, as you level up, it gets increasingly difficult to level to the next level. It makes sense, but it's so difficult that you're pretty much better off buying new crew members when you can because your old members won't level up just as fast to be able to compensate for the increased difficulty. So anyway, about the Hook region, there's new crew members. They have better base stats at level 0, so they're easy to level up. They start at like 500. They cost chimes, which is the universal currency. So make sure you stock up on chimes. So with your leftover gunpowder, you're probably better off just upgrading your buildings when you can. And there's actually like a few people that would be good to have. I probably just like the merchant. The merchant guy, he is like the old arty market guy that gave like plus 10% resource, but this one he gives plus 20%, which is really good if you're doing a really easy mission, so it can really help for getting those resources. So that pretty much covers it for this episode, but I'm thinking like for the next region, I'll probably make a video unless something important happens. But oh yeah, I actually got up to, since I got another scroll piece at the end of this, I'm actually up to 2 out of 4 scrolls for the mage top. But for the next region, it's based on how far you traveled, which is I think like 140k for the next region. So since it's based on how far you travel to get to each new region, basically you want to get as much distance per voyage as you can. Which for your standard voyage, you're gonna do them anyway. But the only difference is probably the special voyages is there if there's a difference between doing the story mode, resources, or just doing scrolls. Is there a difference in that? I actually only started logging it recently, so at the moment I don't know, but I'll probably figure it out by the next episode. So for now, thank you very much for watching and have a nice day.